The Wild Podcast. My name is Darshawn McAway. If you typically listen to this podcast on audio only platforms, well, rest assured there's a link in the description that takes you to the video format of this podcast interview. Now, let's get on with our special guest. Let's get right into it. Listen, a lot of times what gives me the accreditation, if you will, and the representation. Hello, I'm the host of Wild Podcast. My name is Darshawn McAway. And it's going down like this.
Big Red helps me around the house. My dream car happens to be a 13 Tundra. What's yours?
Anything else you got to say? Any words of maybe encouragement or words of hope? Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. You're tuned in to wildpodcast.me. That's WOWPODCAST.me. And today we have a special guest. We have John Brady McDonald. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on your show.
No problem. No problem. So this is a big day for you because this is going to be the 20th anniversary of the Glass Lounge. Tell me, how did you develop the Glass Lounge when you first started it?
Well, the Glass Lodge was first published in 2004 by Kegadon's Press. It was a collection of poems that I had written over the years as an Indigenous youth growing up in an urban setting in Western Canada, in the city of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and some time spent on the streets of Calgary, Alberta. So they were poems that talked about my upbringing in that environment as an Indigenous person battling addictions, battling violence, battling the streets, as a residential school survivor and the child of residential school survivors. And so the poems in the Glass Lodge are a reflection of who I was at that time. I was a young man trying his very best to figure out a way how to express myself in a more I want to say positive manner, but I wasn't doing anything positive at the time. I was heavily into addictions and gangs in the streets, and I wanted to take this opportunity, had this opportunity to share my words and express myself in this format as kind of like a pressure release. So those poems come from a very young man who's just starting out his career as a writer, as a poet, trying his best to explain the world around him.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think you fell into those like hard times? Because it was a choice, or were you forced to do it?
It was the circumstances I grew up in.
Okay.
I come from, like I had said, I'm a multi-generational residential school survivor. So dealing with colonization, dealing with racism, dealing with poverty, dealing with addictions, dealing with the way Canadian society views Indigenous people, has viewed Indigenous people in the past and continues to in many regards. That was the world I knew. That was the world I grew up in. My world was very contained in a very small place in what was the roughest part of town. Even the residential school I was in overlooked where I spent the next 14 years of my life. So this environment in which I grew up in, I didn't actually leave until I was in my late 20s, or my early 20s, sorry. So it's something I've always known, and it's the world that surrounded me at all times.
So aside from the books, what else have you been up to? Like, what's your latest endeavors?
I've been very blessed and very fortunate in my adult life. I've spent the past 25 years working with youth in various aspects. They often get called at-risk youth. I hate that term because it doesn't matter if you come from an affluent neighborhood or if you come from abject poverty like I did. All youth are at risk of being victimized, of being exploited, of being they're all at risk of the dangers of the world out there, and the world is a scary place. So I've been very fortunate that for the past 25 years, my day job has been working with youth in some capacity on the front lines as a frontline youth outreach worker, on the streets, working in schools, in elementary schools as an educator. I've been very blessed in that regard. I've had the opportunity to in my adult, I've done acting, I've done stage work, I've been a musician, I've had the opportunity to travel around the world sharing my story. Um, when I was a younger man, I was awarded a scholarship to attend the University of Cambridge in the UK. I've been very active working lending my voice as an advocate for people who either their voices aren't being heard or they're no longer here to advocate for themselves, such as missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, the unhoused in our community, firefighters dealing with PTSD. I was a firefighter for several years and dealing with that, working with residential school survivors, working to basically try to make the world a better place than I knew, and taking this opportunity, this privilege that I have to be able to string a few sentences together to make it make sense and blob a couple blobs of paint on a canvas and make it look like something, to use that privilege and that responsibility as a warrior to advocate and be that person that I needed when I was growing up.
Right. I want to bring a little bit of attention to something that you just said that I researched about a couple weeks ago. You said the missing Indigenous girls. I didn't know that that was a thing. I went on to some type of YouTube page, and there are like hundreds, if not thousands, of missing girls. Can you tell me what else you're doing to like stop that from happening?
Well, some counts are up to at least 10,000. Some reports, the news have reported 2,000, 3,000, but there's thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls across Canada. Our sisters are often seen as disposable. They're seen as non-humans. They're painted as, as trash. Right now we have 3 sisters who are in the Winnipeg landfill who were put there by a serial killer. And, it was a fight just to go to start the process to get their bodies out of the landfill because it's going to cost money.
Yeah.
And so, we as family members, I have cousins who are missing and murdered. A cousin that I cared about very deeply was one of the missing and murdered. And we were lucky enough to be able to bring her home several years after she was missing.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is try to emphasize that no more stolen sisters. That's
Right.
a phrase you'll hear often. These are, I don't like saying, well, this is somebody's grandmother, this is somebody's auntie. No, this is somebody.
Right.
This is a human being. And, we're not, our people are not disposable people that could just be thrown away, who could just be murdered and they'll not have their murders investigated, brushed under the carpet. This is one of Canada's many dirty little secrets is the fact that we have thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls all across this country for decades. And so sharing their stories, they're one of the ones who I advocate for the fact that their voices aren't here anymore. They need somebody to speak for them, saying, where are we? We need to bring them home.
Yeah. Yeah. And my heart goes out to all the families. It was something that I was looking into. I didn't know that you were a part of somewhat of the association of helping families find their loved ones. But it was something that definitely touched my heart for sure, because I didn't know that that was a thing that was happening. It was an Instagram post that I came across, and I saw that, there was a mother looking for a daughter. She was missing for months, you know, and I found out that, it was this ongoing thing of them being shown up in landfills and on the side of the road. I mean, it was despicable.
And it's something that, having worked as a frontline outreach worker, many of the young ladies that I was able to help out with a sandwich, with a warm pair of clothing, with services in that role as an outreach worker, several of those women are part of the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so even if it wasn't personally attached to me in terms of knowing these women, knowing these girls, and being related to these individuals who are missing, those are still, like I said, those are human beings. Those are human beings that did not deserve that fate. No
Right.
matter what choices a person makes in life, nobody deserves a fate like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's tell the audience where they could go to find you, and also any social media that you have or any of your websites. And we'll also post the links in the description as well.
Well, all my books can be found across Canada in any bookstore. They can be ordered directly from the publisher. That's always an awesome thing if you could track them down to the publisher. So the Glass Lodge 20th Anniversary Edition is published by Shadowpaw Press. It's been republished by Shadowpaw Press. It's my first hardcover book, so I'm very happy about that. There's a certain I don't know. It's like you become legitimate when your books are in hardcover for some reason.
Right.
It's like you're not on a paperback rack anymore. So,
Yeah.
I have an artist webpage, so it's artbyjohnmcdonald.weebly.com. You can visit that website and you can see some of my paintings, some of the stuff I've been doing, and just keep watching all the advocacy posts on Facebook. I'm very I like to use social media. I'm not an influencer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm kind of that's I'm of an older generation. I just mostly use it to bring awareness. So for me, those are my outlets, are my books and my website.
Okay, good deal. Well, John, it was a pleasure speaking to you. This is John Brady McDonald talking about the Glass Lodge. You're listening to wildpodcast.me. We'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.